The envelope hit the marble countertop with a sharp slap. Maya's hand stilled on the dish towel, soap suds dripping onto the polished floor. She didn't need to look up to know what was inside. The air in the kitchen had changed the moment Victoria Castellano walked in, her heels clicking like a countdown. $15,000, Victoria said, her voice as cold as the marble beneath Maya's fingertips. Cash. Take it, pack your things, and leave quietly. Tonight. Maya finally looked up. Victoria stood there in a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months, her perfectly manicured hand resting on the envelope. Her face was smooth, expressionless, like she was negotiating a business deal rather than trying to erase a human being. "I'm not taking your money," Maya said quietly. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Don't be foolish. You're pregnant. You have no family, no resources, no future here. This is more than generous." Generous. The word tasted bitter. Maya pushed the envelope back across the counter. "You want to pay me to disappear because I'm carrying your son's child." "My son has a future," Victoria said sharply. "A career, a reputation, an engagement to Senator Morrison's daughter. You're a complication we can't afford." She paused, then added with calculated cruelty, "And let's be honest, Maya. What exactly can you offer a child? You clean houses for a living." The words landed like stones, heavy and meant to hurt. Maya felt them settle in her chest, felt the old familiar shame trying to rise up and swallow her whole. But beneath the shame, something else stirred. Something harder, sharper. "I'll leave," Maya said, her voice steady. "But I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you." Victoria's expression flickered, surprise breaking through her composed mask. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Maya said, untying her apron. "But it's my mistake to make." She walked out of that kitchen, past the gleaming appliances and imported tile, past the life she'd spent 8 months cleaning and organizing and making perfect for people who'd never once asked her name unless they needed something. She climbed the back stairs to the tiny room they'd given her, hardly bigger than a closet, and packed her single suitcase. 2 changes of clothes, a worn jacket, a paperback novel, and the $63 she'd saved in an envelope under her mattress. Marcus was in the hallway when she came down. He stood there in his tailored suit, fresh from some meeting or another, and for a moment their eyes met. She waited for him to say something, anything. An apology, an explanation, even an acknowledgment that what had happened between them had been real, if only for a moment. He looked away first. "Goodbye, Marcus," Maya said, and was surprised by how calm her voice sounded. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Then, barely audible, "I didn't know she would." "Yes, you did," Maya said simply. "You just didn't stop her." She walked past him, down the grand staircase with its crystal chandelier, through the foyer where she'd polished the floors on her hands and knees just yesterday. The front door closed behind her with a soft click, final as a period at the end of a sentence. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. Maya sat on the bench, her suitcase beside her, and watched the Castellano mansion disappear behind a row of perfectly trimmed hedges. The evening air was cool, and somewhere nearby she could hear children playing, their laughter floating on the breeze. She pressed a hand to her stomach, still flat, still unchanged. But she knew. She'd known for 2 weeks, had seen the doctor just yesterday, had sat in the paper gown in that tiny clinic and heard the words that would change everything. "Congratulations," the doctor had said, squinting at the ultrasound screen. "You're carrying triplets." Triplets. 3 babies. 3 lives depending on her, only her. The bus arrived in a cloud of diesel exhaust. Maya climbed aboard, fed her last few dollars into the fare machine, and found a seat near the back. Through the smudged window, she watched the neighborhood change. Manicured lawns gave way to apartment buildings, luxury cars to beat-up sedans, tree-lined streets to cracked sidewalks. This was her world now. This had always been her world. She'd just forgotten for a moment, let herself believe that Marcus's late-night conversations in the kitchen, his lingering looks, his whispered words meant something more than they did. She'd let herself hope, and hope was dangerous when you had nothing to back it up. The apartment she found was on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old cooking oil and mildew. 2 rooms, barely bigger than the closet she'd slept in at the Castellanos', with a bathroom the size of a postage stamp and a kitchen that consisted of a hot plate and a rust-stained sink. The landlord, a man with yellowed teeth and suspicious eyes, wanted first and last month's rent in cash. "I can pay first month now," Maya said. "Last month by the end of next week." He looked her up and down, taking in her cheap clothes and desperate eyes. "First, last, and deposit. No exceptions." Maya had $57 left. The rent was $300 per month. She took 3 cleaning jobs that first week, working from 6 in the morning until midnight, scrubbing floors and toilets and other people's messes until her hands cracked and bled. She ate 1 meal a day, usually rice with whatever vegetables were cheapest at the corner store. She paid the landlord exactly on time, counting out the bills on his desk while he watched with those suspicious eyes. "You got a job?" he asked. "3, Maya said. He grunted, pocketed the money, and handed her a key that looked like it had been copied 100 times. The apartment was cold. Maya had 1 thin blanket and no heat, so she slept in her jacket and socks, curled around the small curve of her belly that was just starting to show. At night, she could hear her neighbors through the walls. Arguments in Spanish, a baby crying endlessly, someone's television turned up 2 loud playing game shows until 3 in the morning. But it was hers. No one could take it away. No one could tell her to leave. The pregnancy progressed faster than she expected. By 3 months, she couldn't hide it anymore. By 4 months, she had to stop taking the jobs that required bending or lifting. By 5 months, one of her clients, a kind woman named Mrs. Chen who owned a nail salon, sat her down at the kitchen table. "You're having more than 1 baby," Mrs. Chen said. It wasn't a question. Maya nodded, too tired to lie. 3. Yes. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened her purse and pulled out $200. "Take this. Don't argue. You'll need it for the babies." Maya's eyes burned. "I can't." "Yes, you can," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "And when the babies come, you call me. I'll help you find people who need cleaning done from home. Laundry, mending, things you can do with babies nearby." It was the first kindness Maya had been shown in months, and it nearly broke her. She took the money with shaking hands and whispered thank you over and over until Mrs. Chen patted her shoulder and told her to eat something and rest. The triplets were born on a Tuesday in March, 3 boys who came into the world screaming and red-faced and alive. Maya held them, 1 at a time, and named them carefully. Daniel, because it meant God is my judge, and she wanted them to know that judgment came from something higher than wealth or status. Isaac, because it meant laughter, and she wanted them to find joy even when the world was hard. Elijah, because it meant the Lord is my God, and she wanted them to know they had everything they needed inside themselves. The hospital social worker came by with pamphlets about assistance programs and adoption services, her smile sympathetic and slightly pitying. 3 babies is a lot for anyone, the woman said gently. Especially for someone in your situation. There are families who would. No, Maya said. Her voice was raw from labor, but absolute. They're mine. The social worker left the pamphlets anyway. Maya threw them in the trash. The first year was a blur of sleepless nights and endless crying. 3 mouths to feed, 3 bodies to clothe, 3 sets of needs that never aligned. When Daniel finally fell asleep, Isaac woke up screaming. When Isaac settled, Elijah needed changing. Maya moved through her tiny apartment like a ghost, heating bottles, changing diapers, washing endless loads of laundry in the bathtub because the building's machines ate quarters she couldn't spare. She took in mending work from Mrs. Chen, sitting up at 3 in the morning with a baby on her lap and a needle in her hand, stitching hems and fixing tears by the light of a single lamp. Her fingers bled. Her back ached. Her eyes burned with exhaustion so deep she sometimes forgot what day it was. But she never forgot why. When the boys turned 2, Maya enrolled in a night class at the community college. Business accounting. She'd take the bus across town 3 times a week, leaving the boys with Mrs. Chen's daughter Rosa, who charged less than she should have because she understood what it meant to be alone with no options. Maya studied on the bus, memorized formulas while stirring pots of rice, practiced spreadsheets in her head while folding tiny clothes. "Why you working so hard?" Rosa asked one evening, watching Maya rush in to pick up the boys. "You already got 3 jobs." "Because 3 jobs won't be enough," Maya said, scooping up Elijah. "I need something that builds. Something that grows." The boys grew fast, faster than Maya could believe. They learned to walk holding onto her legs, pulling themselves up on furniture she'd found on the street and cleaned until it didn't smell like mildew anymore. They learned to talk, their small voices filling the apartment with questions and demands and the kind of noise that made her heart ache with something she'd never expected to feel. Love, fierce and protective and all-consuming. She taught them to read before kindergarten, sitting on the floor with library books spread around them, pointing to words and sounding them out until they could do it themselves. She taught them numbers by counting everything. Steps on the stairs, cracks in the sidewalk, coins in the jar she kept hidden under the sink. She taught them to be quiet when the landlord came around, to say please and thank you, to look people in the eyes when they spoke. "Why do we gotta be so polite all the time?" Daniel asked once, 6 years old and already showing the stubborn streak that would define him. "Tommy's mom says we don't gotta say sir and ma'am." "Because the world will judge you harder than it judges Tommy," Maya said simply. "So you have to be better. Not for them. For yourselves." By the time she finished her accounting certificate, Maya had started picking up small business clients. A corner store that needed help with their books. A mechanic who couldn't figure out his taxes. A restaurant owner who paid her in cash and leftover food that kept her boys fed for days. She was careful, meticulous, never making mistakes because she couldn't afford to lose a single client. The money was better, but still tight. She bought the boys' clothes from thrift stores, shoes one size too big so they'd last longer. She learned to cut their hair herself, sitting them on a stool in the bathroom while they squirmed and complained. She learned which grocery stores had the best sales, which day the bakery marked down their bread, how to make 1 chicken last for 5 meals. But she also started saving. $20 here, $50 there, tucked into an envelope she kept in a box under her bed. She didn't know what she was saving for exactly, just knew that opportunity required capital, and capital required patience. When the boys were 8, Maya started her own business. Just a simple thing, registered with the state for $300 she'd saved over 2 years. Santos Property Services. She printed flyers at the library and posted them in neighborhoods where people had money but not enough to hire the big companies. She offered bookkeeping, bill paying, property management for landlords who didn't want to deal with tenants. The first year, she made $4,000 profit. The second year, $12,000. The third year, $28,000. She moved them out of the apartment into a small rental house with a yard. The boys ran through it screaming the first day, unable to believe they each got their own room. Maya stood in the kitchen, bigger than the entire apartment had been, and let herself cry for the first time in years. "Why are you sad?" Elijah asked, appearing in the doorway with concern on his young face. "I'm not sad," Maya said, wiping her eyes. "I'm happy." "Happy tears." "Happy tears," she confirmed. The business continued to grow. Maya was smart about it, reinvesting profits, taking courses online, learning about real estate investing and property management. She bought her first investment property when the boys were 10, a small duplex that needed work. She fixed it up herself on weekends, teaching the boys how to patch drywall and paint trim, how to fix a leaky faucet and install a light fixture. "This is ours?" Isaac asked, looking at the building with wide eyes. "This is ours," Maya confirmed. "And when the tenants pay rent, that money helps pay for your school, your food, everything we need." "So we're landlords?" Daniel asked. "We're business owners," Maya corrected. "There's a difference." She bought a second property the next year, then a third. Started managing properties for other landlords who didn't want the hassle. Hired her first employee, then a second. Opened a small office in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a tax service. The boys were 13 when Maya bought her first new car. Not fancy, just a reliable sedan that didn't break down every other month. But it was hers, bought with money she'd earned, title in her name. She took them for a drive the day she brought it home, windows down, radio playing, all of them singing along badly to songs they didn't know all the words to. "Mom," Elijah said from the back seat, "are we rich now?" Maya glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "No, but we're stable. And stable is better than rich." "Why?" Isaac challenged. "Because stable means we built it ourselves," Maya said. "Rich can be taken away. Stable is ours." By the time the boys were 15, Maya's business managed 42 properties and employed 6 people. She'd bought a modest home in a decent neighborhood, nothing flashy but solid, with good schools and safe streets. She made sure the boys had what they needed. Tutors when they struggled, equipment for sports, computers for homework. But she never spoiled them, never let them forget where they came from or how hard she'd worked to get them here. "Why don't we have stuff like the other kids?" Daniel asked one day, frustrated because his friend had gotten a new phone and he was still using Maya's old one. "Because things aren't what matter," Maya said. "Your education matters. Your character matters. Your ability to stand on your own matters. A phone is just a phone." "That's easy for you to say," he muttered. Maya set down the papers she'd been reviewing and looked at him, really looked at him. He had his father's jaw, his father's eyes. But his spine, his determination, the fire in his voice, that was all hers. "You're right," she said quietly. "It is easy for me to say. Because I've had nothing, and I've built something from it. One day you'll understand the difference." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and left the room. Maya went back to her papers, but her hands were shaking slightly. They were getting older, starting to ask questions she'd avoided for years. Questions about their father, about where they came from, about the history she'd buried so carefully. She'd always known this day would come. The boys were 17, seniors in high school, when Maya saw the article. She'd been scrolling through the business section of the newspaper online, researching a potential property acquisition, when his face appeared on her screen. Marcus Castellano, dressed in an expensive suit, standing next to his mother at some charity gala. The headline read, "Castellano Family Honored for Philanthropic Excellence." Maya stared at the photo. Marcus looked older, grayer at the temples, but still polished, still untouchable. Victoria stood beside him, regal as ever, her hand on his arm like she owned him. And maybe she did. Maybe she always had. The caption mentioned Marcus's engagement to Senator Morrison's daughter had ended years ago, some scandal about campaign finances. It mentioned his position as CEO of the family's real estate empire. It mentioned his mother's tireless work for various causes, her dedication to preserving family legacy. Family legacy. The words burned. Maya closed the laptop and sat in the quiet of her home office, listening to the boys move around upstairs, their deep voices now, no longer children. She'd built this life alone, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. She'd raised 3 sons who were smart, capable, strong. She'd created something from nothing, had turned their rejection into fuel, their dismissal into determination. And they had no idea. The Castellanos had no idea what they'd thrown away that night. Victoria slid an envelope across the marble counter. "Mom." It was Isaac at the door. "We're going to shoot hoops. You coming?" She looked at him, tall and lean, his face so much like Marcus's it sometimes hurt to look at. But his smile, his kindness, the way he worried about her, that was all theirs, all the life they'd built together. "In a minute," she said. After he left, Maya opened the laptop again and studied the photo. She studied the mansion in the background, the well-dressed crowd, the champagne glasses and practiced smiles. She studied Victoria's face, searching for any hint of regret, any shadow of doubt. There was none. An idea began to form, not born of anger or revenge, but of something simpler. Clarity. The Castellanos lived in a world where they could erase mistakes with money, where consequences were things that happened to other people. They'd tried to erase her, had believed their power was enough to make her disappear. She hadn't disappeared. She'd transformed. And maybe, Maya thought, maybe they needed to see that. Not for her sake. She didn't need their validation or acknowledgement. But for her sons, who would one day ask questions she'd have to answer. For herself, to close a chapter that had remained open too long. For the girl she'd been, scared and alone with a suitcase and $63, who deserved to know she'd been right to walk away. The next morning, Maya made a phone call. Then another. Within a week, she'd sold 2 of her smaller investment properties, liquidated some stocks, arranged a line of credit she didn't plan to use but wanted available. She bought 3 vehicles, identical, black Mercedes G-Wagons with every option available. The salesman thought she was starting a luxury transportation service. She didn't correct him. "Mom, what's with the cars?" Daniel asked, circling one in the driveway. "We're going somewhere," Maya said. "All of us. And we're arriving properly." "Arriving where?" Elijah asked. Maya looked at her 3 sons, 17 years old, on the edge of manhood, ready to step into lives they'd worked for. "Somewhere I should have taken you a long time ago." She told them that night. Not everything, not the pain or fear or desperation of those early days. But enough. About the Castellanos, about Marcus, about the envelope of cash and the choice she'd made to leave. They listened in silence, sitting around the dining table in the home she'd bought with money she'd earned. When she finished, the quiet stretched long and heavy. "So we have a father," Daniel said finally. "And he doesn't know we exist." "He knows," Maya said carefully. "Or he should have known. I never reached out, never asked for anything. That was my choice. But yes, he's your biological father." "And his mother tried to pay you to disappear," Isaac said, his voice tight with anger. "She did what she thought was necessary to protect her family," Maya said. "I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you what happened." Elijah was quiet, his face thoughtful. Finally he asked, "Why now? Why tell us now?" "Because you're old enough to understand," Maya said. "And because I think it's time they understood too." "Understood what?" Daniel challenged. Maya met his eyes. "That erasing someone doesn't make them disappear. That consequences can't be bought off. That the choice they made that night cost them something they didn't even know they were losing." "So this is revenge," Isaac said. "No," Maya said firmly. "Revenge is trying to hurt someone who hurt you. This is revelation. This is showing them what happened after they closed the door. What grew in the space they abandoned." The boys exchanged looks, having one of those silent conversations they'd perfected over 17 years of being together constantly. "When?" Elijah asked. "Sunday," Maya said. "They're hosting another charity event at the estate. Garden party. High society. The kind of thing that gets photographed and written about." "You want us to crash their party," Daniel said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I want us to attend," Maya corrected. There's a difference. We're not crashing anything. We're simply arriving where we have every right to be. Where you have every right to be. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Maya took them shopping for suits, proper ones from a tailor who measured and pinned and promised perfection. She taught them how to move through spaces like they owned them, how to hold themselves with confidence that didn't need to announce itself. She taught them the art of dignified presence, of power that came from self-possession rather than arrogance. "Why does this matter so much?" Isaac asked while being fitted. "We've never cared about this stuff before." "It matters," Maya said, "because they'll judge you by their standards whether you like it or not. And you'll walk in there meeting every one of those standards, exceeding them, so when they see you, they have to confront what they rejected. Not because we need their approval, but because you deserve to be seen for who you are." Sunday arrived with clear skies and warm weather. Maya dressed carefully in a burgundy dress that was elegant without being flashy, professional without being cold. She wore her hair down, simple jewelry, minimal makeup. She looked like what she was, a successful businesswoman who'd built her life through competence and determination. The boys gathered in the living room in their new suits. Dark navy, perfectly tailored, making them look older, more imposing. They were tall, all 3 of them over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the kind of physical presence that came from sports and good nutrition and lives that had required them to be strong. "You look like you're going to a funeral," Elijah joked nervously. "We're going to a resurrection," Maya said. "Mine." They drove in formation, Maya leading, the boys following in the identical vehicles. The route took them through neighborhoods that shifted from modest to comfortable to wealthy to obscene. Maya had made this drive once before, years ago, in a bus that rattled and smelled like diesel. Now she made it in a vehicle she'd bought with cash, following a GPS that she didn't really need because she remembered every turn. The Castellano estate appeared exactly as she remembered. The high stone walls, the elaborate gate with its gold trim, the long driveway lined with imported trees. Security guards stood at the entrance, checking names against lists, waving through luxury cars with practiced efficiency. Maya pulled up to the gate. The guard approached, tablet in hand, professional smile in place. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "Name?" "Maya Santos," she said clearly. "And my 3 sons." The guard scrolled through his list, frowned, scrolled again. "I'm sorry, I don't see." "We're not on the list," Maya said calmly. "But we're here to see the Castellano family. It's a personal matter." The guard's smile became fixed, uncertain. "Ma'am, this is a private event. Without an invitation." "Tell Victoria Castellano that Maya Santos is here," Maya interrupted, her voice still calm but carrying an edge now. "Tell her I've brought her grandchildren. I promise you, she'll want to know we've arrived." The guard's eyes widened slightly. He stepped back, spoke into his radio, his voice too low to hear. There was a long pause, some back and forth, then he returned to the car. "Please proceed," he said, his professional smile gone, replaced by poorly concealed curiosity. "Someone will meet you at the main entrance." The gates swung open. Maya drove through, her heart pounding but her hands steady on the wheel. Behind her, the boys followed, 3 identical vehicles moving in perfect synchronization. She could see people on the lawn turning to look, champagne glasses pausing midway to lips, conversations trailing off. The driveway curved through manicured gardens where the party was in full swing. White tents, string quartets, women in designer dresses, men in expensive suits, the kind of wealth that was so confident it didn't need to announce itself. Maya parked near the main entrance, in a spot that was clearly not meant for guests, and didn't care. She stepped out of the vehicle. The boys did the same, moving as she'd taught them, with deliberate confidence, unhurried. They came to stand beside her, flanking her on both sides, a united front. The effect was immediate. People stopped talking, stopped moving, stopped pretending they weren't staring. Maya stood there in the afternoon sunlight, her 3 sons beside her, and let them look. Let them see what 17 years of determination and sacrifice and relentless focus had built. The front door opened. Victoria Castellano emerged, still elegant, still impeccable, but older now. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, shock, something that might have been fear. Behind her, Marcus appeared. He was dressed in a light gray suit, his hair styled, his expression polite and curious until his eyes landed on Maya. Then on the boys. Then back to Maya. The color drained from his face. Maya watched him take in the sight of his sons. Watched him see himself reflected 3 times over, in their height, their features, their bearing. Watched the realization crash over him like a wave. Victoria descended the steps slowly, her hand gripping the railing. When she reached the bottom, she stopped, maintaining distance, maintaining control even as Maya could see her hands trembling slightly. "Maya," Victoria said, her voice carefully modulated. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" Maya asked quietly. Victoria's eyes moved to the boys, studying them with an intensity that was almost hungry. "These are Daniel, Isaac, and Elijah," Maya said. "Your grandchildren. Marcus's sons." Marcus had followed his mother down the steps. He stood there now, mouth opening and closing, unable to form words. Around them, the party guests had gone silent, 100 conversations dying at once, everyone's attention fixed on the scene unfolding. "You never told me," Marcus finally managed. "You disappeared. We thought—" "You thought what?" Maya interrupted, her voice still calm but sharp now. "That I took the money and left? That I'd just vanish quietly like your mother demanded?" "I didn't know," Marcus said, his voice desperate now. "I didn't know about the money. I didn't know she—" "You didn't ask," Maya said simply. "You saw me leave and you didn't ask why. You didn't come after me. You didn't wonder what happened." "You should have told me," Marcus said, anger creeping into his voice now, defensive. "I had a right to know." Daniel stepped forward slightly, his movement controlled but protective. "You had a right?" His voice was cold. "What rights did she have when your mother shoved money at her and told her to disappear?" Victoria's face flushed. "That's not— I was protecting my family. Protecting Marcus's future." "By erasing someone?" Isaac said, his voice as hard as his brother's. "By pretending we didn't exist?" "We didn't know you existed," Victoria said, but her voice faltered. "You knew I was pregnant," Maya said. "You knew when you tried to pay me to leave. You just didn't care what happened after. You thought money was enough to erase consequences." The party guests had moved closer now, forming a loose circle, phones out, recording. This was scandal, pure and undeniable, and Maya felt a grim satisfaction knowing it would be everywhere by evening. The Castellano family's carefully maintained image, cracking in real time. "I'm sorry," Marcus said suddenly, his voice breaking. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I should have done so many things differently." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but a distant kind of pity. "I'm not here for your apology," she said. "Then why?" Victoria demanded, her composure cracking further. "Why come here? Why bring them here? What do you want from us?" Maya let the silence stretch, let the question hang in the air between them. The crowd waited, phones recording, witnessing something they'd talk about for years. "I want nothing from you," Maya said finally. "I came here to show you something. To show you what you threw away when you tried to erase me. To show you what grew in the space you abandoned." She gestured to her sons, standing tall and confident beside her. "These are the consequences you thought you could pay off. These are the lives you decided didn't matter enough to acknowledge. These are your grandchildren, Marcus's sons, and they've never needed you. Not your money, not your name, not your permission to exist. Please, Marcus said, stepping forward. Let me get to know them. Let me be part of their lives. I'll do anything, provide anything. They don't need anything from you, Maya said, her voice hard now. They have everything they need. Education, opportunities, values, strength. Everything you would have tried to buy them, they earned. Everything your money would have corrupted, they built clean. Victoria's face had gone pale. You can't just show up after 17 years and expect. I expect nothing, Maya interrupted. That's what you don't understand. I stopped expecting anything from you the moment I walked out of this house. I stopped waiting for acknowledgement, for justice, for anything. I built a life because I had to, and in building it, I became someone who doesn't need what you tried to take from me. Then why are you here? Marcus asked desperately. Maya looked at him, at his mother, at the house behind them where she'd once scrubbed floors and been invisible. Because closure requires witnesses, she said quietly. Because you needed to see what happened after you closed the door. Because my sons deserve to know where they came from before they decide who they want to become. She turned to the boys. You've seen them now. You know who they are. The choice of what to do with that knowledge is yours, not mine and not theirs. Elijah nodded slowly. Isaac's jaw was tight, his eyes hard as he stared at Marcus. Daniel looked between his brothers, then at Maya, then back at the Castellanos. We don't know you, Daniel said finally, addressing Marcus directly. You're our biological father, but that's all you are. You didn't raise us. You didn't teach us. You didn't stay up nights when we were sick or help with homework or show up at games or do any of the things that make someone a parent. I didn't know, Marcus said again, his voice pleading. You should have, Isaac said coldly. You should have made sure. You should have cared enough to find out what happened to her. Marcus flinched as if struck. Victoria drew herself up, trying to regain control. If this is about money. It's never been about money, Maya said, her voice cutting across Victoria's. That's what people like you never understand. You think everything has a price, that every problem can be solved by writing a check. But some things can't be bought. Dignity, character, love. The bond one have with my sons, the life we built together, that's not something your money could have created or can take away. She took a breath, feeling the weight of 17 years lifting. You tried to erase me because I was inconvenient, because I was poor, powerless, disposable. You offered me money because you thought that's all someone like me would understand. But I understood something you didn't. That power isn't given, it's built. That worth isn't assigned, it's earned. And that the best response to rejection isn't begging for acceptance, it's building something so undeniable that rejection becomes irrelevant. The crowd was silent, mesmerized. Maya could see phones everywhere, recording every word, every moment. By tomorrow, this story would be everywhere. The Castellano family's private shame made public, their carefully maintained image shattered. But that wasn't why she'd come. The public exposure was just consequence, not goal. I need to know them, Marcus said suddenly, his voice raw. Please, Maya. I'm begging you. Let me know my sons. Let me be part of their lives. I'll do anything. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to her sons. It's not my decision, she said. It's yours. All three of you. Whatever you choose, I'll support. The boys looked at each other, having another of those silent conversations. Finally, Daniel spoke. Maybe, he said carefully. Someday. But not now. Not like this. You don't get to walk into our lives just because we walked into yours. If you want to know us, you earn it. The same way Mom earned everything she has. The same way we've learned to earn what we want." "How?" Marcus asked desperately. "Tell me how." "Time," Elijah said. "Consistency. Proof that you mean it and that this isn't just guilt or obligation or damage control. Proof that you actually want to know us, not just claim us." Isaac added, "And you start by respecting the life we already have. The life Mom built for us. You don't get to swoop in and try to replace what she's given us or make us into something we're not." Marcus nodded quickly, desperately. "Yes. Anything. I'll do anything." "Then prove it," Daniel said simply. "Prove you're someone worth knowing." Maya felt pride swell in her chest. Her sons, speaking with strength and clarity, setting boundaries, demanding respect. She'd taught them that, not through words but through example. 17 years of showing them what it meant to stand firm, to know your worth, to refuse to be diminished. Victoria was crying now, silently, tears running down her perfectly made-up face. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I was so wrong. I thought I was protecting my family, but I destroyed something I didn't even know we had." "You did," Maya said quietly. "But that's something you'll have to live with. I'm done carrying it for you." She turned to leave, and her sons turned with her, moving in unison, their formation perfect. They walked toward the vehicles, past the silent crowd, past the cameras and phones and staring faces. "Maya, wait!" Victoria called out. Maya paused but didn't turn around. "How did you do it?" Victoria asked, her voice broken. "How did you survive? How did you raise them alone?" Maya looked back over her shoulder. "The same way anyone survives when they have no choice," she said. "One day at a time. One decision at a time. One moment of refusing to quit at a time." "But weren't you angry? Didn't you hate us?" "At first," Maya admitted. "But hate is heavy, and I had 3 babies to carry. So I put the hate down and picked up determination instead. I couldn't afford the luxury of bitterness. I had better things to build." She got into her vehicle. The boys got into theirs. The engines started simultaneously, a low, powerful sound that seemed to echo across the lawn. Maya took one last look at the Castellano estate, at the life she'd left behind, at the people who'd tried to erase her. Then she drove away. The 3 Mercedes G-Wagons moved down the driveway in perfect formation, past the manicured gardens, past the gate where the security guard stood watching with wide eyes, past the stone walls that separated the Castellano world from everything beyond. If you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button because stories like Maya's remind us that our worth isn't determined by those who dismiss us, but by what we build in spite of them. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Maya's situation, and don't forget to like this video to help more people find this story. Maya drove until the estate disappeared in the rearview mirror, until the neighborhood changed back from obscene to wealthy to comfortable to modest. She drove until they were in their part of town, where the houses were smaller but the lives inside them were just as real, just as valuable. When they got home, the boys came inside and sat at the kitchen table, still in their suits, processing everything that had happened. "Are you okay?" Maya asked, putting on water for tea. "Are you?" Daniel countered. Maya thought about it, really thought about it. "Yes," she said finally. "For the first time in 17 years, yes. That chapter is closed now. Whatever happens next is up to you 3, not me. You're old enough to make your own choices about them." "What if we choose nothing?" Isaac asked. "What if we decide we don't want them in our lives?" "Then that's your choice," Maya said simply. "And I'll support it." "What if we do want to know them?" Elijah asked quietly. "Then that's your choice too," Maya said. And I'll support it. They're your biological family. I won't lie and say that doesn't matter. But family is more than biology. Family is who shows up, who stays, who does the work. You three taught me that. They sat in silence for a while, drinking tea, the afternoon light slanting through the kitchen windows. The same kitchen where Maya had taught them to count, to read, to understand that they were enough exactly as they were. "Thank you," Daniel said suddenly. "For what?" "For everything," he said. "For not taking the money. For keeping us. For building this life. For being strong enough to walk away and strong enough to come back." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You three were never a burden," she said. "You were never a sacrifice. You were the reason. For everything." 6 months later, Maya stood in her office, looking at the contract spread across her desk. Another property acquisition, her biggest yet. 52 units, prime location, enough to expand her business significantly. She signed her name with steady hands, the same hands that had once scrubbed floors and changed diapers and stitched hems at 3 in the morning. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elijah, got accepted to Berkeley. Full ride. Then Isaac, MIT wants me. Engineering program. Then Daniel, Georgetown Law. They're offering financial aid. Maya sat down, overwhelmed. Her sons, heading to some of the best universities in the country, earning their way through merit and determination. Everything she'd taught them, everything she'd shown them about building rather than waiting to be given, had taken root. Her phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. He'd been calling once a week for 6 months, consistent but not pushy, leaving messages about wanting to know the boys, wanting to be present, wanting to prove himself. The boys had agreed to meet him for coffee twice, brief conversations that were polite but guarded. They were taking it slow, on their terms. Maya let it ring. This was between them now. Her job was done. She looked out her office window at the city spread before her, thinking about the girl she'd been 17 years ago. Scared, alone, dismissed as worthless. That girl had become this woman. That girl's desperate choice had become this life. The Castellanos had tried to erase her with money. Instead, they'd given her a gift they never intended: freedom. Freedom from their expectations, their control, their definition of success. Freedom to build something entirely her own. And she had. One decision at a time. One day at a time. One moment of refusing to quit at a time. Maya smiled, closed the contract, and got back to work. There were properties to manage, employees to guide, sons to support as they launched into their own futures. There was a life to live, built on foundations no one could shake because she'd poured them herself. The past was closed. The future was open. And Maya Santos, once invisible, once dismissed, once deemed disposable, stood in the center of a life she'd created with nothing but determination and love. That was victory enough. If this story moved you, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss another one. Share it with someone who needs to remember that their worth isn't defined by who rejects them, but by what they build in spite of that rejection. And hit that like button to help this message reach more people who need to hear it. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's simply rising.